By the way, are you in Vegas right now or are you home?
Yeah, I'm at the Aria in Vegas. I'm playing some poker, um, and doing a little bit of work, but a lot of poker.
Why? What kind of work do you do?
I mean, it's mostly like Zoom calls with the team. We're raising money primarily, so I'll jump on investor calls, but a lot of the time ends up trying to figure out content, trying to figure out what we're posting, and working on new offerings. We get pitched about maybe 20, 30 deals a year, and maybe we do 10 to 12 of them that we'll promote and partner with operators. Like the type of people we're hanging out with at Rod's event. So um, it's a lot of just like project management stuff, but I could easily unplug for, like this week is not a busy week.
Man, okay. I was going to ask, like, what makes a busy week? Is it just being on a bunch of investor calls or mostly, like you were saying, content?
Yeah, like a combination of both. Like a busy week is like I'm just like back-to-back calls and Zooms, two investor calls, and then we have like an internal call for sort of figuring out like what we're going to do for the podcast next week, and then another investor call, and then I'm meeting with someone local in Puerto Rico, and then all of a sudden, it's 5, 6 o'clock. But look, these are first world problems. When I was in New York, it was worse because I'd be done at 2 o'clock and I'd have to sit in the office till like 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. because no one in New York would leave the office. Even if I had nothing to do, it was like it would look bad to leave. So I'm so much happier to just be running my own business again and not tied to a desk at Wall Street.
Yeah. What were you doing, I guess, in Wall Street? Because I have a friend from California and I have no idea what she does. Something with stocks?
Yeah. So, I mean, I have a kind of a crazy story. I backed into Wall Street. So I got out of school and it was the dot-com crisis. So I thought I was going to be this like IT computer guy. And I was really into the internet, like late 90s. Prodigy and AOL, and like I was just fascinated with how everything connected. So I went to school for it, and there was supposed to be a lot of money. And it turned out there was a lot of money in that business, but 2001, it was there was no jobs, and it was all the it was mass layoffs, and it was the the dot-com. It was early days. I mean, Amazon might have been like $10 a share back then. I wish I would have had money and bought it then. So I just got into real estate right out of college. My college landlord owned a bunch of properties in Rochester. I went to college upstate in Rochester. So I kind of just fell into real estate. I started, I asked him for advice, and a month later I owned a house, no money down. And then another month later I had another one. And
oh my God.
Yeah, within a year I quit my job and was just doing real estate full time, flipping houses, buying, wholesaling, all the traditional stuff that, most people get started in. And built a nice little business, but Rochester was not an expensive market, and the property management and it was trouble scaling. These were a lot of old houses from the 1920s that were rentals, so something was always breaking. And I learned a lot, but it was kind of created myself a job I hated. And then when the 2008 financial crisis happened, I wanted to move back down to New York City. I grew up in New Jersey. I always wanted to live in Manhattan. I wanted to do the New York City thing. And so I was looking for, something down there, and I had my real estate license. So I was doing a little bit renting apartments, and I found a job on Craigslist, believe it or not, for a hedge fund that was buying the bad mortgages post-financial crisis.
Okay.
So that's how I backed in. They needed real estate people. All these bankers needed real estate people who had done short sales, who had bought foreclosures. They needed us on their side to make sure they weren't going to get their faces ripped off by all the investors that were lowballing them to try to, buy the REOs. And then we also had to decide, do we modify the loan or do we foreclose? And we made way more money modifying loans. So a lot of people thought, we're these vultures that were buying the bad loans and kicking people out of their houses. It was nothing like that. I mean, there was, unfortunately, back then, a lot of people should never have gotten mortgages. In 2005, if you could fog a mirror, you'd get a loan. And so some of those people, they could have never afforded it to begin with. And, some of them we had to, unfortunately foreclose. But a lot of people that, had a short-term job loss and then got a new job, they could afford to make their payments, but they couldn't afford to reinstate and spend $20,000-$30,000 to make all their past due at one time. So we did a lot of modifications, let them keep their house, and then we would hold the loan for about a year, and then we would sell it back to another bank. So we would flip the loan and not the house and make more money that way.
Well, that's cool. I like that. Oh,
Yeah, so it was a crazy run, and I never expected to. I never thought I'd be on Wall Street. I'm not. You've spent a little time with me at those conferences. You know, I'm the furthest thing from a Wall Street guy. But I learned a lot, and it was an incredible experience. But unfortunately, eventually, just being more of an entrepreneur and wanting, I got into real estate for that passive income and that freedom.
mhm.
And when you work in Wall Street, work private equity, it's not about freedom. It's just, how many hours do you work? You just grind, grind, grind. It's just, it's ingrained in the culture.
Mhm.
There's people, it's almost a source of pride. I had a former colleague who, would talk about he doesn't see his kids during the week because he wakes up and gets on the train before they're awake and he doesn't get home till they're already asleep. And, he said that is almost like a point of pride.
Oh
And
my
it's like, that's not the way I'd want to live life. To me, that's not winning. Doesn't matter how much money you make if you're, unhappy and, you don't see your family. It's not something you should strive for.
Yeah. I was actually really curious because you grew up in New Jersey, or was it not New York?
So I grew up in New Jersey, like about an hour and a half outside of the city, just very, very suburban, very, very quiet. The town grew a lot. A lot of people were moving from New York, and they're basically knocking down farmland and building developments.
Ah, okay. Because okay, so what I had thought initially, because I don't think we really went in, like when we first met, into how you got into Wall Street. So I just thought that you went from college to Wall Street. So I guess my question before I learned this was going to be like, being so close to New York, is it ever like, I guess, does it feel like Wall Street's kind of the way most people should go, since you guys are kind of close? And I don't know, it feels more like the East Coast is more about like business, and then over here in the West Coast everybody's way more relaxed.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely there and it's an option. And when you're that close to, to seeing the money, the glitz, the glamour, there's a sense of energy. You go into the city and walk into, just walk out, whether it's, Midtown Times Square, you walk out near the Bull, in the financial district. For me, there was a sense of energy that, that I got. And, as a kid, we grew up kind of just very middle class. I saw my parents struggle with money though, and that gave me part of the drive. And I knew that Wall Street and kind of New York is just one of those options where if you want to make real money, you gotta go up north. You can't, in my hometown there wasn't unless you're going to be a doctor, there wasn't a lot of high six-figure jobs. You'd either have to start your own business or you're going into New York. So I had, pretty much I knew very early on I wasn't going to stay in my hometown. And some of my friends went the other way though. Some of my friends liked the space and the quiet, the relaxation. For me, I just wanted to, I wanted to go out and see the world and get out of there.
Okay, well that makes so much sense why you travel so much now. And
Yeah, I always wanted to do that backpacking Europe. But like right out of school, I just kind of rushed in to try to make money. So I didn't get to take that 6 months off when I was 21 to, put a backpack on and bounce around Europe. So now I try to do it a week or 2 weeks at a time.
dang, that's cool. How do you, I guess, get the, well, I know that you being an entrepreneur, usually, or with us, we get more flexibility with where we can work. But I guess, is it just kind of inherent in you that you want to travel so many places? Or is it that you have to go for work and it just happens to work out?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, most of the time we're just doing Zoom calls, having conference calls. Our properties. I am traveling. I'll travel the properties, and most of our deals are in the Southeast or Sun Belt. So, there's travel for conferences, but most of the international travel is purely, I wanted to build a business and a lifestyle where I could, actually travel and see the world and enjoy it while still, having a productive business. So that's
Nice.
really just something I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to see the world and and do it in a way where I, it's there. There's a certain feeling of kind of accomplishment where I can be in Europe and still have the business functioning and working. And it takes a lot of work to set up the processes and have the right team in place to to do that. And doing that right is a sense of accomplishment when
Mhm.
you when you're stuck at your desk and you can't do things because you haven't set the business up right. That's the type of stuff that frustrates me. where it feels like I'm failing as an entrepreneur if I, haven't set up the business and the process to the point where I can't take some time off and travel.
Mm-hmm. So how long ago was it since you worked in Wall Street? Because I'm assuming that, once you stopped, that's when you were able to like actually start going out more.
Yeah, so it was 2019. I think March of 2019, I left as an employee, and I actually still owned a piece of the business. I ended up getting bought out in 2021. So it was a good soft landing because part of the other problem when you're in New York or California, my K1, which was the just from owning a piece of the business, I actually earned more money from owning a piece of the business than I was making on my salary. So
Wow.
once I was miserable, it's like, why am I here? And it was a few $100,000 a year. So, but for New York is, okay, but not exactly amazing. And, but I was only keeping half of it because every extra dollar I made was half of it was going to the government. So I was really working for half the price. And that was a big factor in I think getting more frustrated, losing motivation, and wanting to do something different.
Damn. And so with, I guess, traveling now. So when I was, I think 18, I got one of those like Discover card. You're a student and you're 18 now. Get a credit card. And my mom was immediately like, yes, get it. And just because she knows the importance of building credit, but she never really looked into how to maximize credit cards and it like in the most optimized, I guess. And basically my question is like, do you use like travel cards? And if so, like how do you make traveling work for you and businesses and stuff work for you? And how did you learn all of that?
So I went down a rabbit hole on this in 2014. I still remember, this is how I got hooked on points and miles. It was the day after Christmas. I found out about Google Flights, and you could pull up a map and look for different places. And I was in New York, and I just had the whole map of the US, and I saw Hawaii was $14. And I hadn't been shopping. I didn't know, but it seemed extra cheap. And I was like, I wonder what business class costs. And I dropped it down. Business class was $114 to Hawaii trip. And this was like you could Google this. It was like Delta had a mistake fare for about 4 hours where like nationwide their pricing was off. So I booked 2 round trip tickets over Valentine's Day to go to Hawaii. Got a lot of brownie points for that. And once I flew business class, the lay flat seats, I was like, I can't go back. So I dove into websites like the Points Guide, boardingarea.com has a lot of blogs, and there's a lot of bloggers that just talk about all the efficiencies. And fortunately, I had a lot of business expenses as well, so I started just putting business expenses on my personal card and then getting reimbursed from the company. For vendors, for even booking hotel rooms and airfare for some of my coworkers. Nobody else wanted to deal with it. But I was like, okay, I'll buy everyone's ticket and then the company reimburses me. So I ran up a lot of miles. Couple tips. I think it's better to focus on cards that have transferable miles. So American Express, Amex points, Chase points through like a Chase Sapphire Reserve, because those could transfer to multiple airlines. And so Amex points, for example, can transfer to Delta. So unless you're chasing status, you're better off earning the points on Amex because you could transfer them to Delta if you need, but you could also transfer them to about 20 other airlines, including, say, Air Canada, if you want to fly on United, or British Airways or Cathay Pacific. So you could actually book an American Airlines flight even using British Airways miles. So having that flexibility to transfer between Amex and the carriers is often a better value than just having all your points stuck with Delta or United.
Wow. Oh, this is fun. I'm going to look way more into those that you mentioned.
Yeah. And the key is just don't carry a balance. If you're carrying a balance, it's not worth it because the points are valuable, but not if you're paying 29% interest rate. But for those of us that are investing, it's great if you're going to Home Depot for a property, put everything on a credit card, pay it off at the end of the month. If you're furnishing an Airbnb, same thing. And I did that on a project I'm a limited partner in, but I let them, I basically said, hey, use this credit card for everything. and probably have about $30,000 in furniture and various expenses that is all being paid for by the property and paid the bill, and now I've got 30,000 more miles to use.
Dang, that's good. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, it's super powerful. I mean, I've taken so many trips that I wouldn't have if I had to sit in the back of the plane and fly like 12 hours and coach. Like, I just wouldn't want to go. But and that's one of the best redemptions is you transfer. For example, Air Canada charges 60,000 miles to fly business class to Europe. Delta may charge 150 for that, but Air Canada has a really good sweet spot for awards. So some of the foreign carriers have much better deals. So for 60,000 points, you can fly business class, you get a lay flat seat, you get dinner and breakfast, you get wine. It becomes part of the fun of the trip if you plan your travel properly.
Oh wow, that's cool. So what class, I guess, do you travel in now?
I mean, pretty much business class. If I'm flying an hour, it's like, nah, I joke around about this, like I'm too fat to fly coach. Like, if it's like a 1 hour flight, 2 hour flight, like I'll do it begrudgingly. But it's one of the things. I don't buy a lot of expensive clothes. I'm really I'm into comfort and travel. I'll spend that extra money on sitting up front, and it could be a business, it could be a networking experience. I've met potential investors. When you're sitting next to somebody in business class. I made a good friend. One of my trips to Vegas, a doctor was sitting next to me, and we had a good old time. Chatted for most of the flight, stayed in touch, and he's on my mailing list now. And sometimes it's worth the investment.
Wow. So how did you? I guess okay. Well, I feel like it's really easy to just talk to people, especially if you're sitting next to them. But do you have like an elevator pitch, or how do you start going into like, well, this is what I do? Are you interested?
Yeah. I mean, certainly do. It's a fine line. I don't want to be that guy that pitches right away. I just try to be authentic and organic. And I'm so curious in general. I'm always curious what everyone else does. So I always lead with kind of just trying to learn a little bit about them and what they do, and then most of the time they'll turn around and then be curious what I do, and.
Okay.
And if I could tell they're doing well financially too, I may lead with more of the tax stuff, because what we do is provide passive income for real estate. But I really want to figure out how I can help them. If they're, if I know they're doing well and paying too much in taxes, I'm going to start right off with what I think might be most interesting to them is how some of our investment opportunities could actually lower your taxes.
Yeah, that's smart. Ooh, that's cool. I hadn't really thought about like being able to switch up what you say, so that is smart.
Yeah. I mean, nobody should have one elevator pitch. I think you gotta, you just gotta really figure out where do you add value. I'm sure you've got 10 or 20 different ways. I know you're into a lot of different things too. So there's probably 4 or 5 different ways you could help somebody in in real estate, depending on what they need.
Dang, well, that's so cool to learn. Fun. I had a bunch of questions, but they were all kind of answered already. But because they were like specific questions that were answered with some things that we're doing. So this might be like a non sequitur, but you were really funny when we first met. Did you ever think that you would, or did you ever have any kind of interest going into stand up or any thought about that?
I actually did. I did a little bit after college. I don't know. Maybe I mentioned this and it was in the back of your mind. But so yeah, after school, I was still living in Rochester, and there was a radio station contest. Sort of the funniest person in Rochester. I think you'd win like $100 and get like a guest spot at the local comedy club. And all my friends were like, you should do it. So I ended up doing okay. I made the second round, so there was basically like 3 weeks in a row. They were sort of have 10 people go up, and like 2 or 3 would advance. Then I made the final round. Was super nervous, got pretty drunk, but got some laughs. And then there was a few comedians up in Rochester that they would tour, the Midwest. They were not, and this was back, up until recently, most comedians were broke, and it was kind of a terrible lifestyle. So these were comedians, and they actually ran a comedy class for some of us and others that were in the contest. And it was like a 2 or 3 month class where they really went through the art and the science. So like if you go to a stand-up show, there's a bit of a science to it. There's ways to structure jokes. There's there's a thing called the rule of threes, where if they list three things, the third one is usually the punchline. And then there's misdirection. So there's certain things. I mean, I think you generally have to be naturally funny and have that personality. But, there's definitely some introverted people that, if you met them at a bar, you wouldn't think they're funny, but, they can get on stage and really craft a good presentation. Then there's other people that are just naturally gregarious and with a little bit of structure can do well. So, I mean, I did it for about a year. I got paid once. I think I made I have $75 in career earnings in comedy. And I also bombed once really bad. This was a free show, but I got to do like the MC where you're welcome everyone. Mm-hmm. And, but it was somebody who was on the Howard Stern show a lot was coming into town. So all the fans, all they wanted to do was see that guy. And, when I listen to comedy podcasts now, it's crazy to hear all these guys that are like famous and super successful, but everyone has stories of just absolutely bombing. And, I mean, it was one of those things. I think anybody was going to bomb because the crowd is basically there. They were already drunk and all they wanted to do was see the guy from the Howard Stern show. So like nobody wanted to hear anyone else's stuff. But it's fun. And now, the world is different now with podcasting, and there's so many other avenues for comedians to make money. Whereas I was interested, but I kind of lost interest because I saw so many talented people that were coming in through Rochester to do a weekend that I thought were amazingly funny, but were, making 40 grand a year. And, the highlight of their weekend was scoring road coke.
Oh my God. Ooh.
So I wanted to make, I really wanted to, my ambition kind of lost my interest in comedy at the time. Cause like, I'm not going to be broke for 15, 20 years to try to make it, to try to get on a sitcom. But now it's fun. Now I can just, I enjoy taking over a dinner party from time to time, and if I get the right group of people that's egging me on, and it's just, becomes, just fun to just kind of just do it for the heck of it.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It's a very good time. Did you, I guess, because you were saying that you were kind of interested. Was it something that you had kind of wanted to pursue before college, or did you ever, I guess the real question would be like, did you have a career in mind growing up? Like, oh, I want to be a comedian, or I want to be this.
It's a good question. I mean, I was super into the internet too. And I was a bit of a nerd. I'm still a bit of a nerd, but I was definitely, a bit of a nerd and so I also have alopecia. So like I don't have to shave my head. I've been bald since I was like, young. So I think humor became kind of a defense mechanism and a way to kind of, just, make friends, diffuse situations. So, I saw the power of humor. I never really thought of it as a career until, I kind of started getting into stand up a little bit and realized that, that you can do it, but it's such a powerful tool. And now, I mean, I still think of it now, now that I've, had some success, there's a little part of me that wants to fly to Austin and do Kill Tony and try to, give stand up a shot, where I don't need to do it for the money, but for the, just kind of the love of the art. So there's a part of me, but it's, there's also, so many other things and obligations and travel. And I think, I think it's probably just fun to do as a part-time thing at this point.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. I mean, the reason I ask as well is just, I feel like, well, not me. Okay. I guess to bring it back to me, I never really had something that I wanted to do growing up. I had a bunch of friends that like, they wanted to be a doctor. I know a couple of people that like want to be a lawyer, and it was kind of, not unmotivating. I forget the right word at this time right now, but, I was kind of feeling really disappointed in myself. Like I felt like I should be aiming towards something, but, I don't know. It was just interesting. So it's interesting to hear when people either kind of feel the same way as I did, where it's just like, well, I don't really have an aim, but I'm just kind of going, or even the other side.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's pretty, I think most people don't really know, or they think they know, and then they change their major 3 times, or they spend $150,000 on college and get a degree they don't use. I just remember, as you were talking, I remembered I didn't necessarily know specifically. I just knew I wanted to make money. I think I might have used the term, I want to be a big shot.
Mm.
I had these visions, and I don't really play golf, but I had these visions of just being on a golf course and doing deals. So what I wanted to do was kind of that. I didn't know what industry or or anything at the time. And then, the whole computer thing. I mean, I was actually interested in computers, and I remember they had these magazines for, here's the majors that make the most money. And I was like, oh, computer science, all this stuff. So, I was like, oh, I like computers, and there's a lot of money in it. So I just sort of did it on a whim. I put some thought into it, but certainly, was never 5 years old saying, oh, I want to be a computer guy, or I want to be a real estate entrepreneur. It just kind of happened. And I know so many people who, don't do. And I remember when I was just getting started in my early 20s, there was English majors that were now in the IT industry, because things change so quickly that, 10 years later, your degree, it's very, unless you're a doctor or really specialized, I think a great majority of people end up doing something completely different than they thought they were going to do in their teens or their 20s.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think anyways, yeah, same thing where when I was going into college, I had even professors saying that they changed their majors like 3 or 4 times, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Though. I mean, how the heck do you know what you're supposed to do when you're a completely different person, I think, when you're 30 than when you're 15 or 20. It's just there's no way to know.
Yeah, it's crazy even now, or I guess like even being a year out of high school, I felt like a completely different person. So that absolutely makes sense.
Yeah, especially did you go away, or did you just stay
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I stayed home, but then my second year of college, then I studied abroad in Korea. So then that really flipped everything as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Wait, were you in Seoul?
Yeah.
Did we talk about this? I know I had a couple beverages in me, but yeah, I actually taught English briefly in Korea in 2000. Yeah, 2008, right before I got into Wall Street. It was sort of the financial crisis, and I just sort of traveled a bit and was supposed to stay a year, but I ended up having that opportunity to come back and work in New York. But yeah, I lived like right next to Itaewon and taught.
That's so crazy. So you know Korean?
I still remember, like ordering food, like illi samsa, and like for the taxi, like orancho, wencho, basically food and directions.
That's so crazy. How did you even get that opportunity? Was it just okay? So my dad, I think a couple years ago, he would go to the park a lot, and there's a bunch of like Chinese people doing Tai Chi, but they would tell him, oh, you should go to Cambodia, you should go to Thailand and teach English. Was it like super easy like that? Did you need a certification?
So the Korea was great because you just needed to be a native speaker and have a college degree. There's such a demand for English teachers. So I was just kind of Googling just, opportunities to work abroad. And, I had a friend that did the Japanese, there's a program called JET for like Japanese educational training. So that's a much more formal program. So my friend Adam actually he ended up staying like 3 years, met his wife there actually. And so they've got a couple kids. They he brought them to the States, and so he had this crazy experience. But yeah, for Korea, it was pretty easy. There was a demand, and they flew me over. The schedule was crazy. So the problem was I was teaching university students and adults, and I had to be there at 7 a.m. to teach from like 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then I had to come back at like 6 p.m. and teach like 6 to 8 or 6 to 9. And it was 6 days a week. So I wanted to travel. We had to work on Saturdays. I'm trying to give away my Saturday shifts to people who wanted extra money so that I could have a long weekend. And so I wasn't really, most of the people doing it really were trying to pay off their student loans and were doing it as their first job. I was really doing it as a working vacation. But it was incredible. I'm still in touch with a few friends on Facebook and Instagram that I met that, because some of them, I was 28 at the time, and, some of them were 21, 22. So, close enough in age that, I've stayed in touch with some of them for, 15 plus years.
That's so cool. Oh man. Yeah. With me, I was able to, I think they had like a kind of like a work study scholarship. So I didn't teach English, but it was kind of like reinforcing English. So we had an English or an e-lounge next to the library where anybody could come in and just kind of chat with us. So Yeah, I forgot how many days I worked. I think it was like 4 days a week, maybe 5. Um, but yeah, it was really interesting. It was really cool. What was crazy is that I don't know, like I know a little bit of a couple other languages, but a lot of them that would speak to me, I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure you guys took like English class in school, but like, how are you so good? And they're like, oh, I would watch Friends or I would watch this. I'm like, dude.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I'm trying to do that now too. I'm trying, for me now, I try to watch Netflix with Spanish subtitles so that I do live in Puerto Rico, so I'm picking up and I understand a bit more than I speak.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm trying to actually just keep the subtitles on most of the time and just try to improve myself as much as possible so I can get a little better at Spanish.
I'm gonna do the same thing because man, I feel inadequate. Like they would even know more about the language, like what I mean, I know what a pronoun is, but like the small things.
Everybody. It's in this day and age, everyone, the pronouns are getting beaten to death there. But yeah, it's like when someone talks about the past participle or an adverb, it's like, yeah, stuff you just know naturally, but we haven't thought about that since we were, 5 years old.
Oh my God, that's so cool. I love Korea. I really want to go back. I actually have like $800 stuck in a bank account over there that I can't close here, so I have to go back.
Oh, that's funny. I still get random texts here and there because I think I may have like $10 in mine too because I think I just withdrew. It wasn't worth going to close it for the last $2, but yeah, I still get random texts here and there with the Korean. I have to cut and paste into Google Translate.
Ah, that's
So,
funny.
so,
Yeah,
so did you get into K-pop while you were over there?
a little bit, a little bit. I won't lie. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was everywhere, which was crazy. Like on, well, okay, I guess we have stuff on buses as well too, but I'm used to having like actors. So when it's different, when it's like actual idols, like they were everywhere on milk cartons, on like bank signs and everything. It was a little like shocking.
Yeah, I feel like Korea was still a little bit more under the radar when I went, and then I mean I think I don't know my friends over there, they were into Wonder Girls, which is probably the equivalent of like Spice Girls for Americans, because they're like, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is so far back.
Yeah. And then I remembered just some funny, just even though everyone's different, everyone's still very much the same.
Hmm.
There were a couple of the guys we're talking about. There's a term called ajuma, and
Yeah.
ajuma is sort of like a very tough middle-aged woman. So I try to just compare it to like someone complaining about their mother-in-law or something like that. But it was just like, but one of my students he goes, the reason that North Korea will never invade South Korea is because the Ajumas are so tough.
South Korea. They were so nice. That was also another thing that was really, really cool. I wasn't expecting anybody to be like racist or mean to me. But I just remember seeing a lot of blogs saying that people don't really have personal space. And so I didn't know what that would be like, but it wasn't anything crazy. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, everyone is super friendly to me. I definitely saw some like older people on the subway just kind of looking up at me, just like they hadn't seen such like a big giant bald white guy in a while. But yeah, no, it was a great time. I'm really happy that I got to do it, and I think I mean people should travel more. I think what is it like half the country doesn't even have a passport, or maybe even more, or what percentages have never even left the country. If you take out like Cancun or a cruise, I don't know that I guess it counts, but I mean, when I talk about leaving the country, it's like really going away, not just going over to Cancun or Cabo for a weekend.
Yeah, I remember seeing this kind of meme, I guess, or this like comic strip where there's two strips. So the first strip was this gentleman that was I think pretty much he was like wherever he would go, it would always be a bunch of different people, and he was kind of like kind of I don't know about racist, but he's just like, this sucks. Like there's no culture, like or pretty much like it's just a mix of too many of everybody, and it's just not nice to be around. And then the second strip was him going to different uh, countries, and it's like, oh, it's this specific culture, and then he really started to appreciate because it didn't feel like just a weird blend, a mess of everything. And I feel like that's like when people say like, oh, America's a melting pot, like yeah, but I don't know if it was necessarily meant to be that. Like I don't know, because like this is going into different things, but yeah, I feel like it's really cool even if I'm traveling within the US too. Like if I go to Texas or if I go to a couple different places, like they have their own culture, and it's really fun to immerse yourself in it and really appreciate something that's distinct.
Oh, absolutely. And after living in New York for many years, just to get out of New York, and Puerto Rico obviously has a very unique culture, and it's refreshing. Just get into the South, just where people are generally, not that I think New York gets a bad rap too. It's not that everyone in New York is not friendly. It's just there's a different pace. And frankly, so much of Manhattan is also people moving from it's the best and the brightest moving from different parts of the country to New York too. So there's very few born and raised, grew up in Manhattan. And there's actually a term for that too. There's a term called a city hick. Is like someone who, grew up in Manhattan, but they're not like this blue blood Manhattan type person. They're just like, but they just grew up and they kind of only know the city and haven't really ventured out of the city.
Wow. Is it true that like some, I guess, buildings have like everything that you need on the first couple floors and you kind of don't really need to go anywhere else?
Yeah. I mean, my first apartment had a gym, a screening room, pool tables. There's basically a kind of a valet laundry service. So I actually didn't do laundry for almost 20 years until I moved to Puerto Rico. All of a sudden I'm like looking at it. I'm like, oh, I gotta, I still remembered how to do it, but it was, it was in New York. It was not that expensive either. It was maybe $20. Just a big bag of laundry. And then, for my dress shirts too, the amount of time it was going to take me to I'm not a good ironer. So I'm a guy who would iron a wrinkle into the shirt. So the shirts were like $1.50 each. So it was way better to just like drop the shirts off. You get a nice clean pressed shirt, you put it on and go to work. So the conveniences, and that was part of, in some of this is like 4-hour work week stuff of just being efficient with time. I had $20 for laundry, $30 for laundry, rather than sitting home for 4 or 5 hours. It's worth it. I'd rather be figuring out how to do another deal or make some more money than spend my entire day. So, I mean, New York is really built around that. I mean, we had, now Uber Eats is everywhere, but we had a thing called Seamless way back then. And hundreds of restaurants would deliver healthy food as well. There's a lot of healthy options.
Wow, that's cool. So why did you move to Puerto Rico from New York?
So I was kind of burnt out with New York and the taxes and just the lifestyle. And Puerto Rico's got some amazing incentives they're trying to recruit entrepreneurs and business owners to move down there, because Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory. They can all travel freely. So the population in Puerto Rico had been declining for I think 15, 20 years. Their population was declining every year. And then there was the bad hurricane in 2017 where a lot of people moved. So, the island needs, more people to come in, spend, both create jobs and also just spend money and just, repopulate the island. So there's a pretty amazing tax incentive there called, it's now all centralized under a thing called Act 60. And basically it's the Export Services Act is the big part of it, where if you make money off of the island, whether you're a fund manager, whether you're doing internet marketing, selling courses, really anything where the money's coming from the mainland, almost anything qualifies. They only tax you at 4%, and there's no federal income tax.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a life-changing opportunity. And then there's separate incentives. There's another one for stock traders where there's no capital gains, both short-term or long-term. And the short-term is why a lot of the traders moved, because generally, if you buy Tesla and sell it for a profit the next day, that's short term, which is ordinary income. So if you're in the U.S. doing that, you might be paying 50% tax rate.
Oh my God.
If you do that in Puerto Rico, it's 0. So it's been amazing, and it's been like joining a country club but not having to pay, because there's about 10,000 other entrepreneurs that I've met there, and they've had some level of success that made it worthwhile to move, but also a sense of adventure to do it. Because so many people will talk about it or be like, I just, I pay too much in taxes, but very few actually take action. And that goes for almost all business. And I'm sure you go to a lot of real estate events and you see a lot of people, they're like perpetual course takers. They go, they talk about it, they don't actually do anything. It's really the 5-10% of people actually step up and take action, I think, for almost anything. With Puerto Rico, what's great is the ones that actually made it there have already taken that action, and it's been I've made a lot of a lot of new friends and also learned a lot. There's a lot of, potential mentors and just people that are just really have interesting stories there. So I enjoy, that's what's keeping me there, is the people, and the locals are very friendly. I've made some local friends. I'm a block from the beach, and there's good surfing there too. I know you're on the West Coast. Apparently there's a place called Rincon, which apparently rivals, Hawaii and Southern California for surfing.
Dang. I am not a surfer at all. My stepdad is, but I'm not afraid of the ocean. I'm just reasonably careful with it.
Yeah, no, I think that's smart. Honestly, the West Coast, I mean, it's cold and there's sharks out there too. Come out to Puerto Rico, the water's warm all year round. And on the North Coast, it can be a little rough, but nothing like California. So
there's no sharks in Puerto Rico?
I mean, no, I've never heard of a shark attack. I mean, I'm not saying there's no sharks, but even the lobsters, the Caribbean lobsters, don't even have claws. Everything's more laid back there.
Oh man, you're making it sound very tempting.
Yeah, it's a cool spot. It's I encourage anybody who's even just looking for a vacation. It's I think it's been overlooked a bit. Everyone thinks of Cancun or Dominican Republic or Cabo, but Puerto Rico, especially from the East Coast, is a pretty easy trip. I mean, coming all the way from California, I mean, you could be in Hawaii in 5 hours. So it's more of a 10-hour trek to get to Puerto Rico. But I strongly recommend everybody should come to visit.
So do you also own anything over there? Or actually, sorry, let me adjust my question. Do you own multifamily over there? Because I'm assuming that you don't really do anything in single family.
Yeah, so I own my primary condo, and then I'm a partner on a deal where we converted a vacant building to an Airbnb guest house. Yeah, so what I try not to do now is I don't want to create myself a job that I hate. So what I didn't want to do is be running around to a bunch of single family and 2-family houses, because it's a great way to get started, but it's a lot of work, and it also can become a bit of a trap. So I try to focus on being a partner on slightly larger deals where there's a general partner or somebody who's really running the day to day. And the bigger deals, bigger is better for the most part. At least at this point in my life, the way I want my lifestyle. And so I'm invested in a deal, and Puerto Rico also has tax incentives for converting properties to hotels or guest houses. So we get 40% of our construction budget back.
Wow.
So, and granted, we're over budget on this deal. Things take a little longer in Puerto Rico. Material, everything. You pay a little bit of the gringo tax probably, but we're basically almost finished. It's listed on Airbnb right now, and it may take a year or two to get the tax incentives in, but overall, I think it's turned into a great project. And those are the things I generally look for. And then I still invest heavily in the mainland, and generally in larger syndication deals where we actually raise some capital through our fund and through my network, and then I'll invest myself. Then we try to bring along extra money from my network, and we become a part of the general partnership of the deal, but not the full-time operator. We're usually bringing the money to like some of the people, some of the higher end people at Rod Cleef's events that you met there, that are the warriors, the ones that have a ton of experience. And in this day and age, it doesn't matter how good you are. You could have a great track record, you could have millions of dollars, but with larger deals, everybody always needs more money. And maybe you found 2 projects at the same time, or you just finished one 2 months ago, and people's investors, there's a limited supply of money. So if you're in the business of helping raise money, you're always in demand. And it's a good fit for me. I found I spend a lot of my time talking to other investors, talking about the tax benefits, talking about just how, what's their financial plan, how are they trying to plan for retirement. And then the other part of my time is talking to great operators and some of them are great operators because they're good at operations and don't really like raising money and just don't have that personality to kind of connect with investors. They just want to operate the building and be left alone. So, so I found, I think, a good niche where I can balance between the two, because I enjoy both sides of it. The only thing that, frankly, I struggle with is this new stuff, like the content, which you do such a great job of. Sometimes it's like, what do I talk about today? That's part of the struggle is, okay, how do we put out valuable content? How do we, get the word out there in this day and age. Back in the day, we would just send postcards out or something. And now, believe it or not, I'm not that I'm a shy person, but yeah, there's times where it's like, I'll especially if I'm by myself and I'm just trying to talk to the camera for like a solo thing. That's where I struggle a bit of like, what do I talk about? How do I,
yeah, it's weird.
Want to hear.
Yeah. That's why I do podcasts, so that, at least for now, I'm trying to, make a schedule or something so that I can actually share what I'm learning. But man, it's weird. It's weird being alone or just to film yourself talking. Props to so many people that do it. I understand now.
Absolutely. But what's cool is it does work, and it makes you feel like when you get those compliments, when somebody sends you a DM and says, I really liked what I was like, oh, somebody actually listened and it helped them. So that's what keeps this going.
It really does. Positive reinforcement. Have you heard, or I guess, have you taken the Clifton strength test?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've taken that one. I've taken a few of them over time, and I know one of them said that my best execution skill is delegation, which some of my friends and colleagues kind of laugh at that.
Mine, one of mine is called woo, so it's like winning others over. So yeah, all the compliments that like actually keeps me going. I love it.
Yeah, and then there's another one called Predictive Index, and I was in another mastermind where basically they won't hire anyone without just like phase one of the hiring before you even get to an interview is have them do. It's like a 12-minute thing, and it just has bases like 4 personality types. Like there's the A and the B for kind of the drive and the sociability, and and I think on that one I was listed as like a persuader. But certainly need to pair myself with someone who has like extreme attention to detail and execution behind the scenes. Otherwise, and I try to do better, but I definitely have chased shiny objects in my day, and still am prone to it. So I need to try to work on staying somewhat focused.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool. So I guess being where you're at now, because it seems like you got your operations going, they're running smoothly, and you definitely have been in the industry long enough to, I would say, be an expert. If you can go back and change anything, would you change, or do you have anything that like, oh, I should have done this, or oh, I should have done this sooner? Or do you feel like everything's kind of gone smoothly?
Yeah, I mean, I think, at a high level, I'd be afraid to, you change one little thing and it could throw everything off. So, I think I've watched too many sci-fi television shows to really want to really change something. But, I think as I look back, there's things, the marketing, I remember being, a couple of years into the business, and I was afraid to send out postcards. I think it cost $700. And it was, we got those little yellow kind of the We Buy Houses type postcards. We got the list from the county, and it was basically like an absentee owner list. And now I think you can go to like a website, click 3 buttons and get it for most of the country. But back then we actually had to go to our local county, and, I think we paid $20 for the list, but we literally hired interns to print out labels and individually stamp like 700 plus postcards. And, I was scared to do it. And I think we made $100,000 in that mailing after spending $70 or $700. So in hindsight, it's like, you can't be afraid to make some investments in marketing and yourself. And, look, fast forward almost 20 years, I was a bit slow on the social media and the podcast and stuff too. When I first launched this business in 2020, I'd had Wall Street money for the last 10 or 15 years. And I had a lot of investors who wanted to invest with us. But at the time, we had Wall Street money, and, there was no way to take on investors. So when I started, we sort of put up a website. I reached out to some people, but I hadn't really commit to getting the brand out there. I just, I sort of forgot some of the lessons I'd previously learned because I was, thought I was maybe past it. And, fast forward now, I mean, we have the podcast now. Love doing other shows as well, and just getting the word out there. But kind of forgot my early lesson of you just need to you need to market. The marketing's changed. It's not postcards anymore. It's mostly social media.
Yeah.
Social media, Google, and and a little bit of live events, and just really getting out and meeting people one-on-one. There's no substitute. I tell a lot of people who are looking to get into investing, first is consuming content like this, reading, whether it's Bigger Pockets, podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's got to get out, whether it's your local RIA in your hometown or, a live event. I think most people have a live event either within driving distance or, a cheap flight to get to, an event where there's hundreds of people that are either in the same spot as you or even better, the people that are a few years ahead of you.
Yeah. Okay. And what is, for the people that don't know, what is a RIA?
Oh, Real Estate Investor Association. So most towns have, I think almost every city has one. If you go on Meetup or just event, there's tons of events all over the country. And it's a great way to meet other people in the industry and great way to break in. And, people that are established always need hustlers that are, trying to, break their way into the business. So there's room for everybody. And if you're a kind of a networking machine, there's room for deal sourcing. If you're more of an analyst, kind of introverted person, that's fine too. There's always, for every crazy extrovert like me, you need somebody to crunch numbers and make things happen behind the scenes as well.
Okay, that's really cool, because I always feel like, going into this field, being new, like kind of trying to break in, I don't know what I could do, and I always feel like everybody's looking for somebody that's more experienced. I guess you were saying that that's not always true. What can people who are just trying to break into the industry offer?
Yeah, I mean, so deal sourcing is always, always part of it. And, deal sourcing is also not, it's not always knocking on doors. I mean, it can be very data driven at this point. So, it can be calling and networking, but it could also be, finding those lists, working through, all those tools like Property Shark, PropStream, and finding the right data to kind of put together a mailer for or a campaign to try to reach out. And there's even mass texting now where you don't even need to really get on the phone. You can kind of put things into a database and send inquiries to maybe like a group of tired landlords to see who's interested in selling. So there's so many ways to add value. And I think the key is just figuring out what your skill set is, what you want to do, and then find those, just people that need that opposite skill set. And, I found at the real estate clubs, there's a lot of people who've made some money already and are kind of, somewhat tired and lazy. And, they have money, they want to do deals, but they, don't want to hustle anymore. So I think if you've got some hustle in you, there's plenty of ways to add value.
Cool. Well, that's good to know. Thank you for the quick tips. And
sorry, get on a soapbox from time to time.
No, it's great. And that's really what, why I have these questions. And I hope that, people can talk more than I can ask, because I end up just starting to listen more and more of like what you guys are doing, that I forget to actually think of questions. So, thank you. Sorry, go on. I guess last piece of question that I have would be, what would you say to, I guess, the newer generation? Do you feel like people should be more, or should learn more about entrepreneurialism? Or do you think that, I don't know, like going to school seems like a more worth it, safer way to go? Or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and it's some of my friends have kids that are getting towards starting to think about college at this point. So it's something I've had a fair amount of discussions with just friends, colleagues, coworkers. The world's definitely changed. I mean, even when I was going to school, the era of working for one company and just kind of till retirement, that's long gone. I think college, as long as you're not running up hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, I mean, I think, in the absence of like knowing what else to do, I mean, I certainly have nothing against college. Like what I would certainly recommend is don't spend $200,000 to go to some liberal arts school to get a degree in something that doesn't make any money. I really think they should underwrite student loans like an actual business loan. It's like, if you're going to make $30,000 a year, you can't take out $200,000 in debt. If you're going to be a doctor or something where you make hundreds of thousands, all right, so be it. But college it can be great. It's a great experience for most, but it's not always worth the huge debt burden. And I think in this day and age, I mean, I think whether or not you have that entrepreneur spirit into you, learning things like real estate investing is a valuable skill, and it can unlock for some people. It lets them do their passion.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to make extra money as a real estate investor, allows you. And I have a couple friends that are teachers, but have made some real estate, flip houses on the side, and they make the same amount of money in real estate as they do teaching, but they actually like teaching. And so it allows them to have a better lifestyle. So I think, you need to have, for most people, you need to have some other hustle, whether it's a side hustle, whether it's a skill, something that unlocks, the ability to have that freedom. Because you can't really rely on an employer to take care of you. The world has changed. So I know people who do options trading on the side. There's a lot of ways to generate extra income outside of the traditional financial system. And some of my content, I'm not a big fan of that traditional Vanguards. Most of the money in the stock market. I just think it's there's too many layers of people charging fees, and it's somewhat corrupt at times, in my opinion. So I think having your money into real estate and other alternative investments, which really wasn't even around until 10 years ago. There was these country club deals, but you weren't allowed to advertise for real estate syndications until 2012, when they changed the rules. You could only sort of present to someone you had a pre-existing relationship with.
Wow.
So this is a growing industry of sort of private funds, private investing that really most people didn't have access to until in recent years. So I think it's an industry that will continue to grow, and everybody should keep their eye on it, so that, if you're 5-10 years from now and you actually built up some assets, it's not, sitting in the stock market, losing 20% one year, gaining 22% the next year. Mm-hmm. And you're not in that roller, tied to, just stuck in that Wall Street roller coaster.
Yeah, that sounds like a very tiring life.
Yeah, very stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've had days where, some of those down days in COVID, I mean, where I look at the portfolio and it's like I'm down $50,000 today, and it doesn't feel good. It's it's a scary number. And I've been through 2 or 3 of those crashes already too. So I guess one thing is that over time you realize, if it goes to zero, the whole world is over and we're in the zombie apocalypse. But things do come back. 2020 it was down 30%, and then 6 months later it was up. It was a crazy roller coaster. But meanwhile, the real estate didn't really, we had some fears during COVID, but really never dropped, never forced to sell anything. And then by the end of the year, real estate was through the roof.
Yeah, that was really interesting to learn about when I actually got into everything in 2021.
Yeah, it's pretty wild time, and you were stuck in California for it. I don't want to get too far into politics, but that's a different podcast of being stuck in California during COVID.
Oh yeah, yeah, different podcasts. So many questions and so many tangents I could go on. But I'm like, I don't want to take up too much of your time. You mentioned a podcast. What is it called, or if people watch this, where can they find you?
Sure. So our podcast is called Alternative Investor Mastermind. It's on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. And then, we run a company called JKAM Investments. That's JKAM for JK Asset Management, JKAM Investments.com. And I'm on pretty much all social media. I mean, mostly active, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. We have a TikTok account. I haven't really figured out a dance move for it yet or anything, but I'm old. I'm in my 40s here, so TikTok was a step for me.
TikTok is awful. It is pain on the world. Well, cool. Lastly, from me at least, if you could be a vacation, what would you be? I've had people that have chose skiing, surfing, and such.
Yeah, I'm a social person. I want to be somewhere where there's networking, just posted up at a bar, or a resort where I'm meeting people from all over the world, or exploring together. That's my ideal type of trip. That's what I fall into. I was in Buenos Aires a couple months ago, and just meeting people from everywhere. Love those types of social, because you can do that. You can do that anywhere. If it's skiing, if it's I even did a fitness boot camp one time, believe it or not.
Oh
You
my
wouldn't
God.
know by looking at me, but I did a 2-week fitness retreat in Majorca.
Wow. How intense was that?
Yeah, it was. We worked out twice a day, and then we were biking and hiking. The problem was there was a bunch of British people, and I started drinking beer with them at night. So I'd probably burned 1,500 calories and drank back 500 or 700 of them. But net I still lost like 10 pounds in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Would you do it again?
Yeah, I think I need to. Also, this year, I think I need to soon. Especially like I'm in Vegas right now for a week. I'm gonna play some poker tournaments, and so after a week in Vegas, I probably need a cleanse or a boot camp or something.
I'm gonna keep you to it. I'll message you in like a week or two. See when you book it.
Yeah, please do. Always need those accountability partners.
Well, thank you so much, Jack. I hope that you win lots in those tournaments. Go.
Thank you very much, and I really appreciate you having me on the show. And you should do our podcast sometime. Love to have you on.
That would be fun. Well, nice to see you again, talk to you. You have a wonderful day.
Thanks, you too.
Have a good one. Bye now.
Bye.